A very good evening to all the CUET aspirants and welcome back to Hitbullseye. So the topic for today's discussion is going to be literary or figurative devices. In this slide, we will understand what is figures of speech or figurative devices. We will see some of the examples, how many figurative devices can you get in your exam, and we will see some practice questions on the basis of it. And let us see who's going to answer the maximum number of questions. So if you have attended the previous few lives with me, you must have seen that at least 4 questions of your English paper are there from the figures of speech. So it's important that you know whatever option is given over there, you know the meaning of those figures of speech and you know where can they be used. Now, before that, we need to understand what figures of speech are. Look at this. These are the devices used for writing style, through which author beautifies his language. So there are different ways of writing something. There is narrative, there is descriptive, and the third one is literary. So you are also going to have literary passages in your exam. It is clearly given in the notification issued by CUET-samarth.ac.in that you will have literary passages. So not just the direct question from figures of speech, this class is going to help you to understand the literary passages also. Now, the authors often use certain types of writing, styles of writing, or they use some devices to beautify the language to work towards the betterment of the aesthetics of that particular piece of writing. उन्हें ही हम figures of speech कहते हैं. So today we will understand, we will see what kind of figures of speech you can get. Building blocks of literature, these are known as building blocks of literature, makes it enchanting because they beautifies literature. Otherwise, what is that thing which makes literature a different kind of writing in comparison to the other document or formal type of writings? The writings you do for law, the writings you do for formalities, you can say, the formal work. So we need to see what is the difference between the two. Mostly convey some implied meanings or comparisons. Figurative devices, as you can understand by the name itself, they have figurative meanings. They have implied meanings or comparison. So you cannot take literal meaning of each and everything. Just to give you an example, if I say there should be a divorce between legislature and judiciary, it doesn't mean that there should be a literal divorce between the two. It's just a figurative way of saying that they should not intervene with each other's works. So this is what these literary devices also do. And there you go. You can see some of the important literary or figurative devices on the screen in front of you. First is hyperbole. तो hyperbole को हिंदी में हम बोलते हैं अतिशयोक्ति. When you exaggerate something, कोई चीज जितनी है और आप उसको बहुत बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलो तो वो होता है hyperbole. So I am going to simply explain these terms to you. Irony is incongruity between what is shown to you and what turns out to be the reality, or what you know or what actually it turns out to be. That is irony. If I give you an example of irony, there is this novel Coolie written by Mulk Raj Anand, a great Indian novelist. So the whole novel is based on this boy who is an orphaned one, and because he could not afford education, he had to get into different kinds of labor to earn to earn the money or to earn the bread, or you can say meal, whatever. So he was this poor a kid, and the name of the protagonist of Coolie is Raja, which is an irony because actually he is not prosperous, he is not affluent. He's rather very poor. He has to work as a coolie, as a factory labor and whatnot. So this is irony. You say something, you mean something else. Next is metaphor. In metaphor and simile, in both, there is a kind of comparison between two things, but the comparison is an explicit or an open one in the simile because you use words like as and like. So a comparison between two things using a simile will be explicit because you will see words like this. She's as beautiful as a rose. The shirt is as blue as the sky, right? So you will see words like and as. But in metaphor, the comparison is an implicit one, a hidden comparison. Moving on, personification. How will you remember this? When you almost, give the human attributes or qualities to a non-living thing or to an animal, you basically personify that thing. So personification is attributing human qualities to a non-living thing. For example, the Panchatantra stories. In Panchatantra story, you have so many animals, they talk to each other, which actually they do not do. So talking, singing, weeping, these are all qualities of humans, not animals or non-living things. But we still do it. So this is what language do, the literature do. Pun. Pun is a kind of word play. It's a witty saying in which there are two intended meanings. So one meaning will be very clear, a literal one, but actually it has a deep meaning also. So these are witty saying or sentences. Moving on, we have anaphora. Anaphora is repetition of a word or a phrase again and again for some desired effect. So if the writer or the poet, he want to emphasize on something, he would repeat it again and again. For example, the poem Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. He has used this phrase, we are the hollow man, we are the stuffed man. So he again and again used this phrase, we are, and man at the end. When you do this again and again using the initial part, that is known as an effect, which is anaphora. You try to emphasize that thing. Moving on to some more. So those were the very, very common ones. These are a little bit, can be new ones for you, but we never know. I think these many figures of speech you should be ready with. Onomatopoeia, a fancy word. Onomatopoeia is when you use a word which literally stands for the same sound, or it is associated with the same sound which is actually produced. The birds are chirping. Chirping is a word which actually gives you that feel of the actual sound of the birds. Someone was I could hear some tiptoes in the background. So tiptoe actually produces the same sound. Similarly, there are many words in English language we use as it is for the sound they stand for. That is known as onomatopoeia. Moving on, oxymoron. Oxymoron, paradox and antithesis. They are quite similar. Let's understand these three. In oxymoron, you will have two words, two contradictory words juxtaposing each other and put together. Bittersweet, hating love, loving hate. These words cannot go together. Burning ice. How can ice be burning? Whenever you see any poet, poets and writers, they have a poet's liberty or a writer's liberty. In literature, writers can do that. So when you see two contrasting words put together, it will be oxymoron. If you see there is a contradiction within the sentence itself, the whole sentence, you think it is challenging or it is contrasting itself, it will be paradox. Moving on, you have antithesis. In antithesis, in a sentence, you will find two phrases which contradict each other. The whole sentence may not contradict each other, but there will be two phrases put together there in the same sentence and they are contrasting each other. We will see example of all of these, so no worries. We have to do the exercise also. Malapropism. Malapropism is a term or a figure of speech that comes from Miss Malaprop, which is a character in Richard Brinsley Sheridan's play The Rivals. So that lady, Miss Malaprop, she had this habit of pronouncing words incorrectly and making blunders and creating laughter out of that. For example, instead of saying you are pinnacle of politeness, she would say you are pineapple of politeness, which doesn't make sense. So this humorous effect which turns out or the humorous effect you get after the mixing of the words or mispronunciation or misuse of the word is known as malapropism. So this device is used by many of the poets deliberately to induce, or you can say to bring that humor and ridicule in his writing. Next is synecdoche. Synecdoche and metonymy are again quite similar. In synecdoche and metonymy, you use one word to specify something else. So rather than Rather than saying king, you would say throne. So this throne belongs to this dynasty. So any such sentence where instead of using one word which you are referring to, you use another associated word which stands for the same. But there is a difference. In metonymy, it can be anything, any word associated to that thing. But in synecdoche, the word that you are using will be a part of that thing that you are referring to. For example, asking for the hand in marriage. Rather than asking for the whole body, you say I asked for her hand, right? So it means you asked her for the marriage or him for the marriage. So in synecdoche, the word that you are going to use, or that the word that the poet will use, will be a part of the whole. For example, wave for the whole ocean. So it is somehow going to be part of the whole that we want to refer to indirectly. But in metonymy, it may or may not be this case. For example, we say pen is mightier than the sword. So do you think pen is a part of something? Pen is not a part of our hand with which we do writing. Pen is mightier than sword means if you are wise, if you are intelligent, you are stronger than a person who is, you can say, robust or very strong physically. So that will be the case of metonymy. In satire, again, satire is a way of writing in which you include a lot of humor and ridicule, and your aim or the purpose of the writer will be to bring in some moral, social or political change. Alright, done with the definitions. Let us see some examples and let's see who's going to answer these questions. We have done so many classes on literary figures. Let's check your knowledge now. First one. Our history teacher is older than the hills. Which device has been used here, students? Abhiteg is asking what is pun. Beta, pun is a type of a sentence, or you can say a witty, intelligent saying where there are more than two meanings of the same thing. So one thing is the literal meaning and there will be some intended meaning also there. We will see the example of it. Okay, Amit is saying that it is metaphor. Amit, think about it again. Yes, now you're right. It is hyperbole. Is it possible? Can a person be older than the hills? See, I know we can live up to like 110 years also, Chinese people do, but we cannot be as old as hills. So this is an exaggerated way of saying that our teacher, our history teacher is very old. So it will be hyperbole. किसी चीज को बढ़ा चढ़ा के बोलना, exaggerate करना. सिमिली में दो चीजों में कंपैरिजन होता है, अ डायरेक्ट कंपैरिजन. यहाँ पर किन्हीं दो चीजों में कंपैरिजन नहीं है. Euphemism, another fancy word. Listen to its definition carefully. In euphemism, rather than saying something bluntly, which may be rude, you use a very mild term, a very smart one. For example, rather than saying we are firing you, you will say we have to let you go. Rather than saying he is idiot, he is mad, you will say he is mentally impaired, he is psychologically impaired. So when you do this, when you use mild phrases, which we all do on our day-to-day basis, you are using euphemism for that thing. Sugar coat करके बोलना basically किसी चीज को. The first one is metaphor, जिसमें एक indirect comparison हो. तो यहाँ पर metaphor भी नहीं है, euphemism भी नहीं है. The right answer is hyperbole. So Amit, your answer was correct. Her eyes were like the eyes of a statue. Which literary device has been used here? Her eyes were like the eyes of a statue. Can you see the key word here, which will lead you to the right answer? Come on, let us see who's going to answer this one. This is a very easy one. Look at this now, the keyword. Her eyes have been compared to the eyes of a statue, which means they were, you can say, stony kind of eyes. Probably the person was very scared or she was numb. That is the reason her eyes looked lifeless. They looked stony. So her eyes, this female's eyes have been compared to a statue's eye Okay, so Abhitej is saying it should be metaphor. Amit is saying it should be hyperbole. No, guys, it should be simile. Look at this word, like. दो चीजों को कंपेयर किया है, उसकी आंखों को कंपेयर किया स्टैचू की आंखों से, हर आईज विद द स्टैचूज आईज, यूजिंग द वर्ड लाइक. जब भी आप लाइक और एज को यूज करके दो चीजों को कंपेयर करते हो, इट शुड बी सिमिली, नॉट मेटाफर, राइट? If now look at the difference, listen to me carefully. Amit, you were saying this should be okay. Abhitej is saying it should be metaphor. अगर ये metaphor होता तो ये sentence ऐसे होता, her eyes were stony eyes. अगर मैं कहूँ her eyes were statue, that of a statue's eye or stony eye, then it would have been a metaphor. But यहाँ पर जब like दिया है, it will be a simile. Moving on to the next one. Let us see if you will be able to answer this one. Amit, simile में as भी आता है और like भी आता है. You can use both. As and like synonymously use किए जाते हैं. जब आप दो सब्जेक्ट को या दो नाउन को कंपेयर करते हो तो आप like का यूज करते हो, and when you compare two clauses, then you will use the word as. So they are used synonymously. You compare two noun, you will use like. You compare two clauses, you will use as. Man proposes, God disposes, because he definitely has better plans for you. What is the answer to this one? See, for this kind of questions, if you are not able to find out the right answer, what is the best way? Let's eliminate the choices which cannot be the answer to this one. Do you think there is any kind of exaggeration here? First of all, exaggeration कोई figure of speech नहीं होता. Hyperbole एक figure of speech होता है. Exaggeration is simple English language word. So this one you can easily eliminate. Alliteration में किसी sound का repetition बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. If a sound is repeated again and again, it will be alliteration. Man proposes, God disposes, because he definitely has better plans for you. तो यहाँ से लग रहा था कि कोई ओ साउंड जो है वो alliteration हो सकती है, but it is not used anywhere else, so this is neither alliteration. Simile would be a comparison of two things, an explicit comparison, but we cannot see any word like as or like here. So which word are we left with? We are left with antithesis. मैंने आपको एंटीथीसिस की डेफिनेशन बताई थी. जब दो कॉन्ट्रास्टिंग फ्रेजेस एक साथ एक स्टेटमेंट में हो, they are juxtaposed together at the same place, it will be antithesis. When two words are written together, two contrasting words, it will be oxymoron. But when two contrasting phrases will be written together in one sentence, it will be antithesis. So you can say the spectrum of this one is a broader one. अब मैन प्रपोजेस, प्रपोज करना और डिस्पोज करना दोनों ऑपोजिट चीजें हैं और इन्हें एक साथ लिखा हुआ है कि मैन प्रपोज करता है, गॉड डिस्पोज करता है. सो इट शुड बी एंटीथीसिस. आई होप दिस वन इज क्लियर. यस, वेरी गुड अभितेज. ओके, if you can see this on the screen, this is one of the type of question that you are definitely going to see in the CUET exam. ये मैच द फॉलोइंग वाले क्वेश्चन आप ऑलमोस्ट हर एक स्लॉट में थे लास्ट टाइम इन इंग्लिश पेपर. सो देर आर सम एग्जाम्पल्स गिवन ऑन दिस साइड and figures of speech on this side. You have to identify the right figure of speech. So I just forgot to change the numbers. Let me just do it for you now. This is B, this is C, this is D. This is 2, 3 and 4. Yes, drop in your answers now everyone. Quickly go through it and then I'll show you the options. पहला है to err is human. Err is to make a mistake. तो गलती करना इंसान की फितरत होती है. To forgive, divine. और माफ कर देना भगवान की. So to err is human, to forgive is divine. We have just done one similar kind of example. If you can see, these are two opposite ideas juxtaposed together in the same sentence. अभी last question भी हमने यही किया था. I have a ton of homework. Can we ever have a ton of homework? Yes, though we always feel that we have a ton of work to do, assignment to do, we have a ton to study for the CUET exam, but that is definitely an exaggeration. तो ये तो क्लियरली हुआ हाइपरबली। यहाँ पर दो कॉन्ट्रास्टिंग आइडियाज एक साथ दिए हुए हैं, दिस शुड बी एंटीथीसिस। इट्स एन ओरिजिनल कॉपी। जब अगर कोई चीज ऑलरेडी कॉपी आप उसको बोल रहे हो, कैन इट बी ओरिजिनल? इजंट इट कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी? पर यहाँ पर कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी आइडियाज नहीं है, सिर्फ दो वर्ड हैं जो एक दूसरे को कॉन्ट्राडिक्ट कर रहे हैं। ओरिजिनल और कॉपी, ऑपोजिट वर्ड्स। जब दो ऑपोजिट वर्ड्स एक साथ लिखे हो तो वो होता है ऑक्सीमोरॉन। And the last one is, the ship sank in the stormy sea. Can you see this S sound everywhere? So this should be, wherever there is repetition of a sound, it is alliteration. Okay, I can see Amit has dropped in an answer. Very good, Amit. So if you see from this, second should be the right answer. You may tally your answer. Do you think you have done this only? Okay, Amit, you made a mistake in the last two. आपने 3 के लिए B लिखा है, rather 3 के लिए A होगा. The answer should be B. Moving on to the next question. Everyone would agree that Rohan is an advanced beginner. A very simple one. We have just done a similar kind of example. Advanced beginner. If a person is beginner, can he be advanced? And if he is so advanced, can we call him a beginner in anything? These are two contrasting words put together. Advanced, beginner. So it should be again oxymoron, right? Now, what is allusion? Pun मैं आपको समझा चुकी हूँ. Hyperbole you already know is exaggeration. Allusion, you allude to something else. To explain one thing, you take some other similar kind of example. So when you take that example to explain this thing, you basically allude to that story, that novel or that example. तो allude करना होता है comparison draw करना किसी और example से. You must have heard of the thing, the word allegory, right? So that is also kind of similar. Yes, absolutely correct. Amit, your answer was absolutely correct. और अभी तेज ने भी आंसर बिल्कुल ठीक दिया है. Let's move on to sixth one. Looking at the chaos, the English teacher felt that the classroom was a zoo. So the classroom was so chaotic that the English teacher thought it is a zoo. It's not a class. Should it be oxymoron? Do you think there is a juxtaposition of two opposite words anywhere here? Should it be an alliteration? Can you see any sound being repeated again and again? Should it be metaphor? Do you think a comparison between two things without the use of as and like, and a hidden comparison? Or should it be metonymy? Metonymy is you use one word for the reference to some other word. So you altogether escape using the other word and you use some other word for that. Yes, drop in your answers for this one quickly. Let us see who's going to answer this one. The right answer to this one should be, it should be metaphor. Look at this. Looking at the chaos, the English teacher did not say that the classroom was like zoo. Rather, she is saying that the classroom was a zoo. तो यहाँ पर उसने like और as use नहीं किया, तो उसने implicitly इन दोनों चीजों को compare किया कि ये classroom तो almost एक zoo लग रहा था. ऐसा नहीं कि zoo जैसा लग रहा था, zoo ही लग रहा था. So this should be metaphor. It is not metonymy. You have understood this one, misunderstood this one. Moving on to the seventh one. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain. You can easily find out the figure of speech used here. The rain in Spain stays mainly in plains. Can you find out that sound which is repeated again and again? That syllable or vowel or word used again and again? Letter, I would say. So AI वाला जो sound है, it is used almost 5 times within the same sentence. A, rain, Spain, stays, main, plain. Repetition of the sound should be alliteration. Moving on to the next one. Our dog Sharon has gone over the rainbow bridge. वो this mean? Over the rainbow bridge. Can Sharon literally go over the rainbow bridge? No, he definitely cannot. Which means there should be some figurative meaning implied here. But what is that figurative meaning? Think of it. Okay, so Dr. A.K. Chauhan answered for the previous one, alliteration, which is absolutely right. Give me the answer for this one, guys. Should it be pun? Should it be paradox? Should it be euphemism or eulogy? Eulogy is a kind of lyrical poetry you sing in praise of someone. When you praise someone through a poetry or a lyric, it is eulogy. You sing a song in praise of someone. तो यहाँ पर कोई song तो नहीं है. Okay, so Dr. A.K. Chauhan is saying pun. Pun is a word play which should have two intended meanings. यहाँ पर दो intended meaning नहीं है, rather एक ही intended meaning है, and it is, though it is kind of a witty saying, but यहाँ पर दो meaning नहीं है. So when we say a person went over the rainbow bridge, we want to say that he has gone to heavens now. The person or the dog has died now. So instead of saying it in this rude way that the dog has died, it's a fancy word of saying the same thing. You use a mild phrase instead of a harsh one. It is known as euphemism. Right answer is euphemism. Moving on to the 9th one. The colonel asked about how many boots were deployed on the battlefield. क्या battlefield में actually boots deployed होते हैं? So now this is the example of metonymy. I told you, एक चीज को बताने के लिए हम किसी और word का use करें तो that will be metonymy. अब यहाँ पर हमने rather than saying कि that the soldiers were deployed on the battlefield, हमने बोला boots were deployed on the battlefield. So we have used boots for soldiers. When we do this, we call it metonymy. I hope this one is clear. Moving on to the last question for today, and let us see if you will be able to answer this one or not. It rained on his lousy tombstone, and it rained on the grass on his stomach. It rained all over the place. The Catcher's Eye in Rye by J.D. Salinger. What do you think? So this is an excerpt, or you can say lines picked from the poem. It rained on his lousy tombstone. It rained on the grass on his stomach. It rained all over the place. Can you see a repetition of something? What do you think about this one? What do you think about this one, students? Come on, this is the last question for today. Let us see who's going to answer this one. Can you see the repetition of this? It rained on his lousy tombstone. It rained on the grass on his stomach. It rained all over. So this phrase is used again and again. When there is a repetition of a phrase again and again to emphasize that point, it is anaphora. Anaphora, how will you remember it? Phora से you can pick up the word phrase और आप उसको याद रखने की कोशिश करो कि जब phrase बहुत बार use हो तो that will be anaphora. I hope you did learn some of the most important figures of speech or literary devices in this class. We will come up with more example. आज जिन option के example हमने cover up नहीं किए, we will cover up in another live. But to know that, stay updated with the channel, with the lives that are coming up. And to do that, you need to subscribe to the channel. So that is all for today. Thank you so much. Keep studying, keep smiling, and always believe in yourself. Cracking the CUET exam is not a big deal. You definitely can do it. Thank you. Okay, Amit, we will think over this. I just saw your message. You want 2 classes in a week. We will look into that, Amit, and I'll let you know in the next live.